Hello, welcome back to County Board Wrap-Up. I'm Diana Sun, Director of Communications for Arlington County. With me here again today is Mary Hynes, Chairman of the Arlington County Board. Welcome, Mary. Thank you for joining us.
It's always great to be here.
Each month, following the county board meetings, we're taking a half hour to talk about some of the actions the county board took and what those actions mean for you, your family, and our community, so you can easily stay informed about what your government is doing and why. Mary, you're here to help us sort out some of the county board actions that the board took in May. And we know that this month we released the results of the 2015 Resident Satisfaction Survey. So tell us, how did we do?
Well, overall, pretty well. You know, we continue to have some of the highest ratings in the country around resident satisfaction. So we were really pleased to see that we had that again, that the county is continuing to move in many right directions. And we heard from people all across the county that was how they felt. The
survey, how valid is it?
Great question. You know, it's a statistically valid sample that's done. We heard back from about 1,500, a few more than 1,500 residents out of 4,000 who were invited to participate. So it's about a 27–28% response rate, which is pretty good. And when they looked at ethnic distribution, it mirrored very closely to what the ethnicity is of the people who live here in the county. When they looked at geographic distribution, it was a nice representation of all the various parts of the county. So we have a great deal of confidence that within 2.5% or so, this really does represent how people feel about the services that they receive in Arlington.
Yes, it sounded like you had really gotten a good representation of the entire county, cut all different kinds of ways.
That's exactly right. And the nice thing is these things are going to be up on the web so people can go explore them themselves, and they geocoded all the respondents this time, so you can really see it on the map, which is, I think, a new feature for us this time.
Interesting. Could you talk about some of the particular areas where we did well?
Sure. You know, about 90% of the people said they were satisfied or very satisfied with the overall quality of life in our county, and 89% said they were satisfied with the quality of services provided by the county. And one of the things we were really, I think, pleased to see is there's not variation in those numbers based on where people live in the county. It was pretty consistent across the entire county. So that makes us feel like we're doing a good job of spreading those opportunities well across the county. These are similar to the results we got in 2012, in 2008, and in 2004.
So it's nice to see that we don't have pockets here or there.
Yeah, and I think given all the concerns over the last few years, that was one of the things one of the reasons we decided to do the survey, was to try to understand if we had some differentiation that we needed to pay attention to.
How often do we do the survey?
We typically have done it every 4 years, starting in 2004. We did it a little bit earlier this time, so this would be year 3. Again, there's been a lot of change in the county over the last few years with the downturn of the economy, with our the impact of our vacancy rate, and also, quite honestly, with the infusion of new transportation funding that has allowed us to move forward a lot of road projects.
You talked about some areas where we did well. Could you talk about some areas where we maybe didn't do so well?
Well, top of the list are those road projects. Is that whole issue of do you think the quality of the streets are good, and how do you feel about moving around in and through the county? We lost ground in both of those areas, and we're below the national average, which is not usual for Arlington at all in this kind of a survey. Now, the good news about that is beginning in 2012, the county board started to put a lot more money into street paving and street rebuilding. We got 2 big bridge projects funded through the Commonwealth, yes. The one here at Courthouse and 50, and then the other one, which is still so disruptive, the bridge over Columbia Pike at Washington Boulevard. So we got a ton of work going on that's well funded. But there's a little bit of fatigue about driving through places that are under construction, whether it's from road rebuilding or from development projects. And then I think the other factor is that we're doing a lot of road diet and complete street work where people perceive that it's may perceive, and we need to do more work on this, they may perceive that it's more difficult for them to get from where they live to where they need to go because we have bike lanes and we have pedestrian refuges and we have nubs, protected parking lanes. So all of that may be contributing to this. We're going to do some more work to understand this better. The good news is we're continuing to fund paving at a very high level compared to when I came to the board in 2008, and we are doing a lot to rebuild roads.
So it almost sounds like we almost have to take a step back to go forward, because these are, as you say, the very important improvement projects, and just those bridges alone, we know they're very important, yep, but yet very disruptive.
One of the things they say about infrastructure construction is it almost always gets worse before it gets better. And when we upped the level of investment in 2012, we actually said that at the board table. It's like everybody was saying you need to fix the roads, and in fact the 2012 survey said roads are an issue, not like this time. So I think in some ways this validates what we thought would happen, which is you start investing, you rip stuff up, you have a bad winter, and let's not, you know, ignore the winter. But really a lot of this is because we're trying to move to a better, safer road network that works for cars, for bicycles, for people who walk, for people who take transit. So it's complicated.
But a good place to invest, obviously.
Absolutely necessary.
So the survey the county leadership uses as a great way to gauge how the community is feeling and public satisfaction about services. Is it the only way?
Oh, goodness, no. Of course, everybody's welcome to come to the Saturday board meeting where we have public comment, usually 30 to 40 minutes of people telling us things that they're concerned about. And we also have a number of other ways people can email us, and people do stop us, all of us, executive leadership people too, in grocery stores and at church and other places. And of course, Open Door Monday, every Monday in a library or a rec center, is a great way for people to stop in and talk to a county board member about what's ever on their mind. And then we do appropriate follow-up. So all of those things come together to help us understand how people are feeling about Arlington.
So there's lots of ways that people can get involved and give feedback.
Absolutely, absolutely.
To learn more about Arlington's Resident Satisfaction Survey, visit the county website, www.arlingtonva.us. Search 2015 survey. You'll find lots of information on the methodology and the findings of the survey, and lots of easy to understand charts and graphs. We'll be taking a short break, and when we come back, we'll talk with Chairman Hynes about the board approving a $77 million bond sale. So thank you so much.
Starting this summer, you won't need to feed the meter when parking in Arlington. Now, you can pay by cell thanks to the Park Mobile app and park at any metered space throughout the county. It's easy to get started. Download the app from the Apple or Android store. Then, sign up for your free account. You'll need your license plate number and a credit card. Launch the app when you park at a meter. Key in the zone number listed on the Park Mobile sign, or use the GPS functionality. Select the amount of time you want to park and hit start. That's it. The app allows you to get text messages showing you when your time is about to expire, and you can add more time within the posted duration from anywhere. There's even a Find Your Car function in case you forgot where you parked. Arlington's Park Mobile app is the same as DC, so if you use it in the district, you're covered. Park Mobile's Pay by Cell app is available for iPhone, Android, and BlackBerry smartphones. For more information about Pay by Cell and where it's available, visit arlingtonva.us and search Park Mobile.
Welcome back to County Board Wrap-Up with Chair Mary Hynes. She's been chatting with us today about some of the important actions the County Board took at its May meeting. Mary, we just heard that we got a great report card from the community on how we're doing on services.
It's true. It was good.
But we heard that we also got another kind of report card, and can you tell us about that?
We did, and this is sort of breaking news. We heard about one of the rating agencies on Tuesday, but actually all three of the rating agencies who govern how we can borrow money have come back and said, once again, Arlington has received a triple A rating, the best you can get from all three agencies.
That sounds like great news, but what does that really mean to us? Why is that important?
Well, if you think of our bond rating like you think of your consumer credit score, when you get a higher score, you can access money, you can borrow money at a lower rate of interest when you buy something big, like your house or your car. So when we got that highest possible credit score, the AAA from all three agencies, it means that next month when we go out to sell bonds, we will be able to sell them at a low rate because consumer confidence will be high in our capacity to repay these monies on a schedule that's predictable.
So that actually saves us money.
It does. It does save us money. You know, people say it's a tiny little bit of an amount, but when you're talking about borrowing millions of dollars, a tiny amount actually is real money. Yes.
Well, could you let's take a step back and just talk about bonds. What are they and why do we have them?
So a bond is a debt that our community and really every taxpayer who pays into the revenue of our community that we agree to stand behind and pay back. So we sell bonds that we pay back generally over about every 20 years, and so we pay a little bit every time we make a payment. We're paying a little bit of interest and a little bit of the principal. And as part of our budget process each year, we've got it planned out. How much will those bond payments be in order to meet our obligations and retire the debt in the amount of time that we had planned to do?
Not unlike a private
exactly like
household,
your mortgage.
right.
Exactly like your mortgage. That's exactly right. Yeah.
Now you mentioned that next month we'll be selling bonds, and could you talk about that bond sale?
Sure. So first of all, I have to start out by saying we're selling bonds that the voters have approved. So lots of people will remember that in the even-numbered years when they go to vote in Arlington, there's often a question about, do you want to invest more in schools? How about money for Metro, money for our water, sewer, streets, often a park bond or a neighborhood conservation bond. Those are the four areas we typically bond. So we asked people that last year in 2014, and we're getting ready to sell $77.4 million worth of bonds next month. The projects that are likely to be funded will include land acquisition, something we know everybody's anxious about these days, school renovations, another really important, and expansions, another important aspect of this community, some improvements at our water pollution control plant, as well as funding for parks and facilities and Metro, things which are essential to us. We also are taking the opportunity to find out whether we might refinance $200 million of bonds we've sold previously. The interest rates are so low right now that we may be able to save the county even more money by refinancing. But we'll only do it, just like a homeowner, you only refinance when you can get a savings that matters. We'll only refinance if we can get that much better rate.
So again, unlike
Exactly.
somebody refinancing to save money.
Exactly. Actually, you know, over the last 5 years, we've been able to save more than $23 million by refinancing. So
that's
again,
a lot of money.
It's about 4 cents on the tax rate.
So all those little amounts.
All
really
those
do
little
add up.
amounts, they do add up.
And it also sounds like, just listening to you, that the kinds of items that we are carrying bonds for tend to be those long range.
You know, Diana, that's a really great point because we only bond things that have a life longer than the life of the bond. Because the theory is that the community can pay something back over time that it's going to be able to use over time. Other things with much shorter lives, like computers, we fund in an entirely different manner.
So we talked about infrastructure, and the county not only builds infrastructure, but we have to have the land to actually put the infrastructure on top of, whether it be a facility or a park or open space. And this,
or bus storage, my personal favorite.
Many different needs that the county has to operate as a community.
Right.
And in this last month, the county board dealt with 2 very exciting real estate opportunities. Let's talk about the first one, which is a parcel across the street from Washington Lee High School on Quincy Street. I understand that was, the board took an option to purchase. That sounded a little unusual.
Well, it's 6 acres, and the purchase price is $30 million. And we didn't have $30 million just sitting around waiting to be spent on land. But this really was an opportunity too good to pass up. I've been in elected office 20 years. I would say for 15 years, either the school board or the county's had their eye on that property. Belongs to two longtime families, the Buck family, and Mrs. Buck was actually a Cooper, and it was her family that owned this property. It has 5 buildings on it. And it's the only land north of Route 50 that's zoned for industrial use in the whole county, which means we could park buses on it, we could use it for a number of things. Now we could also, using county processes, potentially place a building on it or some other things, but the by right use would allow us to store buses. And I don't know if people in the community know this, but both the county and the school system are running out of places to put buses.
Could you just talk a little bit about the option
versus
the purchase?
Right, so we've put some money down and we'll put some more down in 2016, and by 2017 we need to have a plan to pay the balance, which is about $27 million by our agreement. And as we develop our capital improvement program next year, the board will be figuring out whether in fact we should put bonds out to vote to help pay that $27 million, or whether we have another strategy.
So it sounds like we're at the beginning of a public process or any kind of process.
That's right, and how to use it long term will be the result, will be decided by a very robust community process that looks at all the community needs.
Now there was another exciting real estate opportunity that seems to be developing up on George Mason Drive, where the county is moving out of some properties that are adjacent to the hospital, the Virginia Hospital Center. What kind of possibilities are there?
Well, Adrian Stanton, who is the Chief Operating Officer for the hospital, came to our April meeting to tell us publicly that they really would like that 5 acres. They're running out of hospital beds almost every day, and they really are an important piece of being a sustainable community, is to have a really good hospital, and we've got one of the best. So they own property in 2 other parts of the county. They own a very large parcel down on Carlin Spring Road. People will remember there used to be a hospital down there. It's about 11 acres. And they own 4 acres at the corner of George Mason and Lee Highway on both the north and the south side of northwest and southwest side. They're willing to swap land with us, or maybe a land swap plus money. We're in the early stages of looking at what their proposal would be. But I think there's a very strong feeling on the board and also in the 3 civic associations right around the hospital that the hospital expansion is a good thing for the neighborhoods and a good thing for Arlington. So we're pursuing this pretty strategically, thinking that it'll help us potentially solve some other problems. You
know, we talked a little bit ago about how a healthy community has all kinds of parts, and a hospital is certainly a big part of a community.
It is, and I think you may have seen the ratings, the national ratings. Virginia Hospital Center is the only 4-star hospital in the Northern Virginia area, so we're really proud to have it here at home.
Fortunate.
Yeah.
We'll take one last short break. When we return, we'll talk about the county board voting to sell the historic Reeves farmhouse and what that means for the community gardening efforts at Reeves Land.
Arlington is a safe community, but when it comes to your kids, you can't be too careful. If your kids are spending time home without you, make sure they know these safety rules. Do not have friends over without an adult in the house to supervise.
Our parents aren't home. Okay, bye. Bye.
Keep your doors closed and locked when you're home alone. Do not open the door for anyone, even if you know the person. Don't answer the phone and never tell anyone you're home alone. Make sure you have a trusted neighbor you can go to if you need help, and a list of emergency phone numbers to call. And remember, never hesitate to call the police if you think you spot suspicious activity. Call 911 for emergencies, and for non-emergencies, call 703-558-2222. For more safety tips, go to arlingtonva.us/police.
Welcome back to County Board Wrap-Up with Mary Hynes, as we work our way through the actions the board took at this month's meeting. Mary, the board voted to authorize the manager to sell the former Reeves farmhouse. Could you start off by just explaining to us why the Reeves land is historic? What is it about it?
Well, you know, first let's get it in our geography, right? It's
Yes.
in North Arlington, near actually an extension of Bluemont Park, part of the Boulevard Manor Civic Association. And we bought in 2001 about 2.4 acres of the last remaining dairy farm. Mr. Reeves and his family ran a dairy farm there. Originally they owned more than 200 acres in Arlington, and over the years it had shrunk up. The farmhouse was built in the 19th century and was where the Reeves family lived. It's actually got two sections, one very old and then a couple of additions, but all before 1920. Great front porch sitting on a great view and a sledding hill that everybody in the community loves.
So that sounds like a big chunk of Arlington history there,
Yeah.
wonderful history. Why did the board vote to sell the farmhouse?
You know, the whole thing has been a historic district since 2004, but when the house was purchased, it actually was in very poor condition. And one of the first things that was done here at the county was sort of an assessment of what was needed to make it usable for, basically for assembly, which means larger groups of people than you would have in a single family home, didn't have modern systems. And back then, so 14 years ago or so, the cost was estimated at more than $1 million. And the county just really kind of didn't have $1 million at that point in time, and so set the issue of what to do about the farmhouse aside. In 2010, we convened an ad hoc group of citizens. Our Historic Affairs and Landmark Review Board led this and worked with nearby neighbors, looking at a number of options to really take better care, I guess would be how I would characterize, and figure out what to do about the farmhouse, because the more something's empty and sitting, it doesn't do well. They recommended everything from you know, finding a partner who would run a nature center, to an urban agriculture center, to selling it to an individual. They felt all of those things were acceptable. We have, over the ensuing 5 years, tried twice to find a private partner and failed.
Yes.
The cost now to get it up to the kind of standards is over $2 million. And in these tough times, the board really felt that the highest value was preserving what we all can see from outside. So the way the farmhouse sits on the land, its relationship to the land, and that the best way to do that was actually to move to a sale to a buyer who would be required to do full restoration of the house and treat it as the historic asset that it is. And we would subdivide the land to give them a buildable lot, but only one house would be allowed, and it would be this historic home.
Is there any danger of the rest of the land being developed?
No. Oh my goodness. No. About 2 acres will remain in the county's control. With this decision and the move toward a sale, we will actually then come back and put our S3A zoning on top of it, which is the zoning we use for most parks. So no more houses. Our goal, as I said, is to protect how people perceive this place. And we think actually having someone love the house and use it for a purpose is the right way to get there.
Care for it.
Yeah,
right.
exactly.
Let's wrap up with one of your favorite topics, volunteers. The county board honored some volunteers this month, and just talk to us a little bit about that.
Well, we had 6 great volunteers who got honored, who'd offered time and talent in libraries, in parks, in the jail, and oh gosh, one other place that I'm just blanking out on. One of them was a teenager, Gabriel Sorososo, who volunteers with Arlington Gymnastics and is encouraging and supportive of young people. We also had volunteers at the Columbia Pike Library, a woman who helps folks find what they need. So it was a great event.
talk about the importance of volunteers in our community.
Oh gosh, you know, I think of volunteers as part of the glue that holds this all together. People who have time, who have talent, who have an interest, who decide they're going to reinvest that in our community in order to help people make connections, find what they need, open new doors. It's really, volunteering is really, really important.
If there's some people out there listening who'd like to get involved, how can they get more involved?
Well, you can go to our webpage where we have Volunteer Arlington, which is an online matching tool. And you can also talk if you know that you want to volunteer with parks, you know you want to be with libraries or the Department of Human Services. That was the fourth one I couldn't remember. Or with the criminal justice folks. You can approach those groups directly, and or the school system. Lots of opportunities to volunteer with the schools. Now, we did also make a decision that we're going to move Volunteer Arlington, and we're looking for a private partner here to help us sort of expand and grow that whole effort. So an RFP will probably be hitting the street sometime before September, and if an organization is interested in taking this on, we would partner with them to try to build it into something even bigger than what it's been.
Well, thank you so much, Mary, for being with us here today. And thank you all once again for joining us for the County Board Wrap-Up. We heard this month that Arlingtonians overall are satisfied with county services. We also learned about some of the county's future plans and about how we finance some of our big projects. Remember, if you have more questions about the topics we've discussed, email them to us at atv@arlingtonva.us. or tweet them with the hashtag ArlingtonBoardWrap, and we'll try to answer them next time. See you in June.